Hello, I'm James Cameron.
테크놀로지의 한계를 매번 깨부수며 머릿속 상상을 실제로 만들죠. 전 세계 박스오피스 1위와 3위를 차지한 기록만 봐도 알 수 있죠.
You know, what set me down the path of actually being a director was my love of cinema, my love of storytelling.
그가 아바타 이후 13년 만에 스크린으로 돌아왔습니다. 관객을 놀라게 할 이야기와 혁신적인 기술을 갖고 말이죠. 과연 영화계는 또 어떤 미래를 맞이하게 될까요?
We go like this. 사랑해, 위대한 수업. All right, well, let's talk about Avatar for a second. So that was a grand challenge, and we set ourselves the challenge on the first movie of seeing a rainforest environment writ large on another planet with lower gravity where the trees could be 300 feet tall, 1,000 feet tall, animals that could fly that were huge, that's not even possible on Earth. So there was a lot of fantasy elements in Avatar. And, my goal was to reconnect a global audience with that feeling that they had when they were a little kid out in nature. And they just loved everything they were seeing. They might not have understood it, but they loved it. They wanted to explore it. I mean, I think when we're 6 years old, we're all scientists. It kind of gets taken out of us as we get older and by society. But I wanted people to feel that sense of nature deficit disorder that we all have. That we're not in nature as much as we wanted to be maybe when we were kids, and build a world that was fascinating, that had an almost dreamlike quality that connected with us on a subconscious level. So as I looked at the problem of doing the Avatar sequels, I thought, well, I could do what George Lucas does, and there could be a desert planet and a mountain planet I went, wait a minute. We live on one planet that's got deserts and mountains and oceans and rainforest and every other damn thing, temperate forest. I don't have to go anywhere but Pandora. I can tell the whole story on Pandora. We can introduce different cultures, different animals that we haven't seen before, different biomes, different ecosystems. And so, the sequels will all take place on Pandora. A little bit back on Earth, but mostly on Pandora. And it's rich. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger with each film. And not only bigger, and I don't mean bigger in the sense that like we suddenly wind up with Godzilla. I mean bigger in scope and scale of the storytelling. And with a deeper, richer history, and with more stakes going forward, and more stakes, more jeopardy for our family, for the people that we care for. In the first film, if you've seen the film, if you remember, it's a story really of two young lovers who meet. They're from different cultures. So Jake Sully is a Marine from planet Earth, and he winds up in a very unlikely scenario of going to fill in for his twin brother who is killed on planet Pandora. And he meets a beautiful young indigenous girl there, and despite early conflict, they fall in love, and then he winds up defending them against colonial forces.
I kind of hoped you'd say that.
So in the second film, we find Jake Sully and Neytiri, who are, as we say in the first film, mated for life. They now have 5 children, 3 of their own, 1 that's adopted, and another one that kind of, in a sense, adopts them, a young human boy.
I know one thing. This family is our fortress.
Who's sort of part of the story. So it's really a family story, and that's what distinguishes it from the first story, which was more of a cross-cultural romance. So the second film is at the same time very similar to the first film in its sense of epic grandeur, the beauty of the planet. I would say spiritual themes, indigenous themes, and all of those things people will find similarity. But it's a very, very different story. And there are more characters. There we see a whole new Na'vi culture that we haven't seen before, which are the sea people. called the Metcaina. And as I'm sure most people know, the Avatar films are a mixture of live action photography and performance capture. Performance capture is, where we put the actors into what we call a volume. And in that volume, we're able to literally capture their performance. I would say practically at a molecular level of accuracy. So to tell the story I wanted to tell, which was about the oceans of Pandora, we had to create this new technique, which was how do we capture our human actors in and under the water in the same way that we were capturing them in what would become a rainforest environment on the first film. So we weren't doing the rainforest. You see the rainforest in Avatar 2, but then we leave it behind and we go to the ocean. So how do you do that? And then from our prototype, we were able to build a huge tank for capturing the performances. 120 feet long, it had a big wave maker at one end, and it had the ability to generate strong currents. Because what we figured is we can have the actors zipping around on creatures, motorized creatures zipping through the water. That's dangerous and it's hard to film. Or we can bring the movement of the ocean to them and shoot them in a kind of a wind tunnel where we can zoom in and get their performances and very accurately. So we built essentially an underwater wind tunnel that could generate a current of up to 10 knots, and our actors are holding on for dear life, on these creatures. And they learned how to do that, and of course everybody loved it, everybody loved the challenge of it. But ultimately we switched from normally performance capture is done with a marker suit in a volume that could be like this stage. But you have all these infrared cameras that are looking at the markers. Well, infrared doesn't work underwater, so we went to ultraviolet. So ultraviolet LEDs, and then you had to figure out, well, what are you going to do with the water surface? Because it acts like a moving mirror and it reflects all the markers. And so now there's all kinds of wrong markers, and the computer's got to figure out which ones are the wrong markers from the right markers so it knows where the people are and how they're moving. Well, we figured that out. And the way we figured it out was we put little white plastic balls all over the surface of the water that sat just below the surface and broke that reflection. So if we get to finish this thing out, it's an epic story told over time of people that hopefully we've come to care very much about, and we want to see what happens to them. So once again, the heart and that universal sense of connection with the characters, but in a world that's of kind of infinite fractal quality, and always surprising. The key to, I think, any film, but to keeping Avatar alive and constantly refreshing and constantly having farther and farther horizons, is surprise. Whatever happens next, you may think you have a sense of what an Avatar movie is going to be. Sorry, it's not that.